This time, the chair lays out Senate Bill 1245. Senator Burton, do you have a committee substitute?
I do.
Senator Swartner sends up committee substitute for SB 1245. Chair recognizes Senator Burton to explain the difference between the file bill and the committee substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you are all probably aware, Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution explicitly states the state's authority to recognize legal tender provided that it be gold and silver coin. SB 1245 simply enacts Texas's right under the United States Constitution to recognize gold and silver coinage and bullion minted by the United States Mint as legal tender in Texas. Since the federal government moved away from commodity-backed currency over 40 years ago, the U.S. dollar has experienced an 80% decline in purchasing power. Federal monetary policies, such as persistent deficit spending, leave Texans who save their money in U.S. dollars subject to a long-term devaluation of that money. Committee substitute to SB 1245 will not only facilitate the use of gold and silver in transactions between individuals, but it will also give Texans the opportunity to store their wealth in a more secure way. In short, this bill allows Texans to choose to use gold and silver as possible means to conduct business should parties choose to do so. To be clear, businesses, individuals, and government entities are not required to use or accept silver or gold coins or bullion as payment. We are simply securing the opportunities for Texans to exercise Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution. Other states have legalized gold and silver as legal tender, including Utah, Colorado, Oklahoma, and Missouri. And with me today is Representative Mark Finchem of Arizona, who is currently working on a legal tender bill, or has been working on a legal tender bill in his home state's legislature. Representative Finchem has extensive experience with this subject matter, and with that, I'm happy to have him answer any questions for y'all.
Thank you, Senator Burton. At this time, are there any questions of Senator Burton? If not, we'll open public testimony on SB 1245. I show two people wishing to testify, Mark Finchem, Representative, and Keith Weiner. I think there's only two I show. Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to appear before your body today and for the opportunity to speak with you about the experience I had in the Arizona legislature just a few weeks ago with a similar effort to the bill under consideration before you now. I'd first like to say that Arizona's effort passed easily out of the 60-member House and 30-member Senate. Clearly, the majority of members agreed that adopting a stand on legal tender, acknowledging its role in trade, and how it should be treated for tax purposes was and is the right thing to do. For over 5,000 years, you've never had to force anyone to take gold or silver. We often use the words such as worth, value, capital gains, and appreciation, yet we seem to have lost sight of what they actually mean. The crux of the matter is Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution and its definition of legal tender. Until 1971, purchasing power was linked to the real standard of gold. Purchasing power of the average consumer has been eroded dramatically because of the ill-advised decision to decouple our nation from the gold standard. I was asked a few weeks ago by an AP reporter in Phoenix, why introduce the legislation when the dollar is so strong? My answer rattled him a bit because I said, well, how do you define strength? I got a blank stare and silence. He obviously didn't know. The genesis of this proposed legislative relief from the Arizona perspective, constituents asked for clarification under Arizona statute between federally minted coin that may be used as legal tender and federally minted coin that has a numismatic value of 15% or more greater in value that is than the recognized stamp value, numismatic meaning collector's item. Constituents asked for protection of the exchange of one form of legal tender for another, silver dollars, silver coins to greenbacks. From the taxation of money itself, legal tender money is not subject to taxation or regulation as property other than as money. Constituents also asked for the state to safeguard the exchange of one form of legal tender for another, that the transaction fees do not give rise to a taxable event. Constituents finally asked for the state to provide the definition of specie, which means coin or bullion having gold or silver content, which is verifiable by weight and measure. And of course, the interests of the state demanded that we provision the Arizona Attorney General with affirmative authority to enforce state statute without prejudice to to an individual's right of judicial action pursuant to the Arizona revised statutes. The Arizona Legal Tender Bill was designed to ensure that residents of the state of Arizona could continue to transact business with a constitutionally legal tender and make provisions for trade in precious metals. The Arizona bill was supported by Americans for Prosperity, the Arizona chapter, the American Free Enterprise Club, the 10th Amendment Center, Arizona Constitutional Advocates, the Gold Standard Institute. The escrow lobby was neutral. Freedom Works so far has been silent on the bill, but it aligns with their policies on honest money. Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Arizona, along with NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Business, was also silent on the matter. With that, Mr. Chairman and members, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about the experience that I had in the Arizona House.
Members, are there any questions? Representative, thank you for taking the time to do this.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you having it. Yes, sir, if you would, state your name for the record and give us your testimony.
I'm Keith Weiner, an economist and chairman of the Gold Standard Institute. Mr. Chairman and members, thank you for the opportunity to discuss this bill. My perspective is as an economist who focuses on money and credit. This bill is a step in the right direction, and let me explain why. First, most legislation makes winners and losers, but this bill doesn't hurt anyone. Those who prefer the paper dollar can keep using it with no penalty. However, many Texans are already making the choice to use gold and silver dollars. They're using it as a store of value. They're using it in exchange for change and trade. They aren't yet using it for lending, but that will come. Choice is good. Economists don't always know why people choose what they do, but we do know that they generally want to produce, trade, and consume more. This means companies hire more workers and make more money. Allow me to use an extreme counterexample. North Korea permits its citizens no choices, not even their choice of haircut. It's also no coincidence that its people are starving. Texans are choosing gold for a simple reason. The federal government is debasing the paper dollar, and people want to avoid the loss and the risk. The risk is of bond defaults, bankruptcies, and even losses to bank depositors. The problem is debt. Debt at every level, from the federal government down to the consumer, is rising. It's not only growing, it's growing at an exponential rate. That means it rises at a faster and faster pace. As we say in the software world, which is my previous career, this is not a bug but a feature. That's how the monetary system works. The dollar itself is just a small slice of Uncle Sam's debt. And so like any IOU, it cannot be used to pay off a debt, only shift it. And there's interest on that debt. But the interest cannot be paid off either. It's just added in, which is one of the reasons why debt is always rising. The burden of interest increases with the amount of debt. So for example, if the debt doubles, then the interest payment will double too. Except they have a dirty trick. The dirty trick is they can push down the interest rate. In fact, they've been pushing it down for 34 years. It keeps the interest expense manageable, but it also harms the people. If you work for a living, how are you supposed to save for retirement? It used to be that if you set aside money every month, compounded interest would grow your nest egg far more than your paycheck deposits alone. But today, with interest effectively pinned at zero, it's not possible to save for retirement. If it's hurting younger workers, then it's choking retirees to death. Retirees want to live on the interest and not spend down their principal. That has now become impossible. And by the way, the same problem is occurring in pension funds too. It's no surprise that people are turning to gold. Texas has an historic opportunity to take a leadership position in the growing nationwide and international, I might add, gold movement for the gold standard. If you do, you will help business grow, encourage new ones to start, and even attract them from out of state. This will add good jobs and grow the Texas economy. I respectfully encourage you to pass this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for taking time to be here. Members, Senator Huffine, I thought you might have one on this one.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate
Absolutely.
the opportunity
That's
to
why
ask
we're
a
here.
question. I'd like to represent from Arizona. And did you say that you guys, is this the same legislation you use in Arizona?
No, sir, but it answers many of the same questions.
Maybe I misunderstood. Did you say that you amended that, or that legislation talks specifically about federally issued coins?
Yes, sir.
Gold and silver coins?
Yes, sir.
Because this doesn't. I'm just curious about your experience too with bullion. I mean, I'm all in favor of legislation. I think it's needed and it's a great idea and it's what we need to do. But about bullion. I'm a little curious about that. Do you have, how that's worked out? Do you think there's a say in that, counterfeiting that? Is that an issue?
Frankly, my experience is limited with it, my personal experience, other than the fact that I have purchased bullion rounds. Obviously, under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, we can't mint our own money. However, there are private mints that will produce something that is akin to a one troy ounce round. For our sake, let's just keep calling it a round. That contains 0.999 pure silver. I can exchange that based upon the current rate, the daily rate. So, for example, this morning I think it was like $16.73, exchangeable for green money. We know that there's already an economy that goes on between people who prefer to trade that way as opposed to using greenbacks.
Now, there is an issue, though, if somebody brought in a 50-ounce, 100-ounce, bar, and, how do you really determine what's in the middle of the bar?
Well, that issue, frankly, is between the two parties. So your bill, and quite rightly so, allows for the exchange. So caveat emptor would apply between the receiver and the giver. If somebody, in fact, when talking to Senator Burton, her staff said, well, if I offered you a $500 gold piece for a horse, would you take it? Darn right I would.
Okay, I like that idea. Thank you. That's great.
Thank you, Senator Huffines. Members, are there any other questions? Senator Watson?
On one thing. Would the state of Texas be required to take that as currency?
Thanks, Sir Watson. Members, are there any other questions of this panel? If not, we really appreciate y'all taking the time to be here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to testify on, for, or against SB 1245? If not, public testimony is closed. We'll leave that bill pending. Senator Burton, thank you. Appreciate you. Members, at this time, Business and Commerce will stand at recess, subject call to chair.